You're listening to the Awakened Feminine podcast. I'm your host, 𝐉𝐞𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐬 share the love and wisdom they've picked up along the way in this journey called life. Whether it be their stories, lessons, tips, or expertise in the field, you'll be sure to get your weekly dose of inspiration and tools on how to lead a soul-aligned life. Let's go. Hello and welcome to the Awaken Feminine podcast. I'm your host, 𝐉𝐞𝐬𝐬𝐬𝐤, and today I have the beautiful Jessie Chiang. She is a Malaysian-born spiritual coach and psychic medium in California, empowering women to achieve wealth with ease through divine collaboration. She is also a fellow co-author in Badass Asian Women. So if you haven't got your copy, make sure you get your copy. It's available on Amazon. Yes, I am shamelessly plugging our book whilst we're here.
Hey, it's your platform. Why not?
So Jessie, I'm so excited that you're here. You know I absolutely love you to bits. And last night for me, but earlier today, I interviewed Brienne, who actually connected us. So it was just so beautiful that you both booked your podcast in on the same day.
Yes.
And pretty much at the same time, like you did your booking on the same day and you booked on the same day, which is like, seriously.
Totally unplanned. Seriously, we did not plan this.
So yeah, I'm just so excited to have you here. Now, the first thing I always ask my guests, and this is, what is your definition, or what does the term the awakened feminine mean to you?
Wow. Loaded, isn't it? That's a way to start in your podcast. I think awakened feminine is about letting your soul guide you, allowing that soul to be the forefront, above ego, above a physical body, and go beyond just the five senses. We're going into the six senses, and of course we talk about this today. But I really feel that, when I was fully awakened, had my awakening 12 years ago, I really stepped into that soul self and allowing her to guide me. I really tune into not just my heart but let my body show me what is possible. And that's when I really learned how to unlearn all the programming that I had and start feeling like I'm not alone and there is my spiritual team out there guiding me the whole time. And all I have to do is just tap into that energy. And that's when I start to improve a lot as a human being.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Which brings me to the next question, because it just popped into my head as you were talking. And you know that I told you that I'm very just curious and intuitively guided. Can we talk about your spiritual awakening? Because
of course.
I actually don't even know that story, because you didn't really write about it in Badass Asian Women. It was it was another part of your story. So can you tell me what you were doing before you had your spiritual awakening and the process that you actually went through?
I was, going back to school. When I was in high school, I was all about just really studying and really wanted to be a part of the rat race. Trust me, I'm all for it. I want to go to a corporate job, climb the ladder. I work really hard, and when I went to college, I strive to be the leader of any student association. I love working with teams. So I've never wasn't aware of anything about spirituality or speaking to your guides and all of that stuff. And I didn't grow up in a religious home either. So I didn't have any, knowledge about there's guides and angels and all of that stuff. So then my grandmother and my best friend passed away. Actually, my best friend passed away in Perth, and she died in a car accident. So both of them had a sudden death, and I had no way of saying goodbye, and it was all very shocking. And I was 20 years old, and I had already been in Minnesota at that time, coming from Malaysia, and I was by myself, really disconnected from what was happening on the other side of the world, and in grief by myself. And I started having dreams about my grandmother and my best friend. And those dreams appear to be very real. And I woke up feeling like I need to tell somebody about this messages that I've got. So that summer, I went back to Malaysia and I went to visit my best friend's mom. And I told her about what I've seen. So in the dream, I saw her wearing this black jacket, red blouse, black pants, and black boots. And she was bruised on the left side of her face. And in the dream, she kept telling me she wasn't dead yet. And so I told her mom about this, and her mom walked to her room and took out some pictures that they have developed from the camera that they brought with on their trip with them. And in the picture, was so shocked to see that she was wearing the exact same outfit that I saw in her dream. And the reason that she got the bruise was because she fell out of the van when the door opened, when the van tumbled a few times, and she fell out of there and she knocked herself on a big rock. And that's how she hurt herself and eventually passed away. But when they found her, she was still breathing, and she was still breathing when she was in the hospital, and eventually, lost her life. So because it happened so fast, she didn't realize that she has passed on. And she was still stuck in that realm, thinking that she's alive. So I kind of, collected all this knowledge, and I figured that, okay, she needed to know that she has passed on, and I needed to tell her in my dream. And I don't even know how I did that, but I intentionally go to sleep trying to go meet her again. And luckily for me, I met her, and I told her, I said, hey, you have to move on. You got to go to the light. Somehow I know what to say, and I knew what to do at 20 years old. Nobody taught me. Nobody in my family is intuitive at all. And she nodded, and that was the end of the dream. And the next time I see her again, she's now in this beautiful bright light. She's wearing beautiful clothes. She doesn't look like she's hurt. She doesn't look depressed anymore. And she looked free, and she thanked me profusely in that dream. And so because of that incident, I started going through a lot of like unusual, just this heightened sensitivity that I'm able to feel everybody's feelings, everybody's energy. I had a hard time coping, not just with grieving and the death, but this newfound psychic ability. Like, what is that? And of course, I was starting to take classes and, start learning about mediumship. And it wasn't until 10 years later, I started to explore that a little bit. I went to a place called Temple of Light. And in there, I started getting mentorship from the founder of the Temple of Light. And she goes, here, Jessie, take some of my candles and the tip jar, go out to the psychic fair and put a booth out there and start doing readings. And that's what I did. I just went to the psychic fair. I sat there, not charging any money. I don't even know what I was doing. But that was also a time when I also connected with my own guardian angels. I was speaking to them. They were giving me a lot of details about my past life to validate that they are real. And I had known about my past life as a refugee running from Poland to Czech. I found out that I was an Italian artist, so many different things. And I was able to validate all the dates that they had talked about and Google it, and knew that, oh, this event really happened on those dates. It was historically proven, or at least, recorded. So that was my having more confidence with my intuition, and also getting connected with the angels. And that's where I just, okay, so help me help your people. And I start giving readings, and people were like, oh my God, you're amazing. It's so accurate, blah, blah, blah. I also start tapping into mediumship. I, talk to people who are already passed on. I relay those messages, and I act like a phone, basically. And then within a year, I had my own office, and I was doing this full time.
What?
Like, what?
Sorry, I just need to compose myself here. Okay.
It's a lot.
That is, wow, Jessie. Like, just coming from, no background whatsoever, suddenly seeing your best friend in your dream, and then 10 years later, once you explore, your teacher didn't even really, they just go off and do your own thing, and you just do it. Like, how does that even? Okay, backtrack. So did you? So you said you met your guardian angels before you did the booth? Is that?
Yes. So at that time, I went through another spiritual awakening. I was diagnosed with severe depression. I was already I felt like my body was just a vehicle and my soul was like in between, earth and heaven. I wasn't able to get out of bed. I was really just miserable. And I think a lot of it has to do with my childhood trauma growing up. And my parents didn't agree with me. There was just a lot of things, And that was a moment when it was one of those evening when I was laying on the bed and I felt like I just wanted to go. I am so done with this life. I was so frustrated with what's happening. I've tried so hard to be a good person, but bad things just keep happening and my health was suffering quite a bit. And I saw this bright light and it wasn't physical. It was, very otherworldly. And the energy is very loving. It's very firm, but loving. And then suddenly I heard a voice says, if you want to go, you can go now. But if you go now, you have to come back and do this all over again. And then it was that moment I just snapped out of it and I went, oh my God, I forgot that I signed a contract. And this is why I was here. And all this time, I knew I signed a contract. I knew that I was here on a purpose to do something pretty big, to do something about helping women. And I knew that I was here to help people, but I didn't know what it was. And I was looking for it forever, couldn't find someone to help me. And so I was really frustrated. But when that voice came, I just knew, oh, that was it. And hell no, I'm not coming back. I'm not going to do anything. I was like, no, I'm staying back here. Okay, I'll stay back. So I just, I got up and I told my husband, I said, I'm ready to get help. And he goes, okay. And he, called my doctor and they got me into the hospital and I was outpatient for therapy for about 3 to 6 months. And then I weaned myself off from an antidepressant. And then that's how I found the Temple of Light and I got into doing spiritual work.
Is this back in Malaysia or in the US?
In the US, yeah.
In the
At
US,
that time, I've already spent about 10 years here in the US. Yeah.
Okay, so the title that you put for naming your own episode is Breaking Barriers with a Sixth Sense, Jessie Chiang's Guide to Conquering Personal Struggles. So we've talked about how you kind of developed your sixth sense. It just happened pretty much. So how did you use that to break free? I mean, yes, when you wanted to go, you had that voice tell you, okay, if you go now, you need to come back again. But obviously, with your childhood trauma, with things, you were saying that you had bad things happen in your life. Did you then use your sixth sense to learn or I can't even think what the word is, but get intuitive guidance on how to overcome them?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up feeling like something is wrong with me. I'm wrong. I'm a mistake. I'm nobody. I'm undeserving, unworthy even to be heard or to be seen. Coming from a place where you're too pretty and so you're too much, or you speak too loud, or you're so outspoken so you're too much, so you need to hide yourself, you need to keep yourself in the house. And being seen meant it was a shameful thing. And on top of that, I've been, molested, sexually harassed. I have been fired because I'm too attractive, because the guys couldn't, they were distracted. So I felt really strongly about being a woman. And I definitely felt that was injustice, growing up. And there was just a lot of like unfairness that I felt I couldn't contain that. And I think that comes out automatically with the things that I do or say. And, you know, I think all this time I knew that I have my intuition was guiding me, but I didn't have the right platform, or I didn't have the right place to talk about this yet. And I needed to, and of course I didn't even know how to navigate between this, like what is intuition and what isn't even there. As we all know, if we're not fully awakened, we're not even, we knew we are kind of having, we have that sixth sense, or we instinctively knew some things, but we don't know how to tap into it. It kind of comes and go. It's so subtle. So I was kind of that, but would always just think that, oh, I'm thinking too much. I'm overthinking. I'm making this up. So it wasn't until I had my spiritual awakening, then I understood, ooh, the whole time I was already tapping into it, but I wasn't doing it consciously. So when I was fully awakened, then I start tapping into it consciously. I'm doing it intentionally to find out what is the answer. What did I need to do in order to improve myself and also to protect myself? And there was many incident where, one of them was I was being stalked when I was in college, and this guy was stalking me, and I could feel his energy even before he stepped close to me. I could feel him watching me. You know how it is when someone's watching you
Mm.
from behind, you can just really feel it. And he had that intense energy, and he was not even in sight, but I could feel him around. And I had to report him to, our university's security guard and make sure that he has a restraining order for me. So it was things like that. I'm now able to say, okay, I'm confident with how, and we were able to prove that he was following me. And I felt validated. And I think that eventually, and then the more I practiced, the more I was using my intuition, the more I saw that, um, like, hey, it's real. I'm not making it up, and I no longer start blaming myself. So it was using this intuition. I felt like this was already an inner wisdom, and I think everybody has them, that we tap into the universal knowledge, the intelligence that's out there. And we all have that in us. It's the inner GPS. So whenever we feel lost, it's there for us to tap into.
Mm. So for people who feel that, they're being guided, but they don't really know how to tap in, what's something that they can do to start really tapping into that intuition and really allowing it to guide them?
For me, I feel like the easiest way is to start using it for everyday use, something that is not so um, big of a decision. So use it for intuitive eating, for example. I find that intuitively I already knew what I need to eat in order to replenish myself. And as we all know, not all diet works for everybody. So it's your body needs different things. As much as I want to go vegetarian, I knew that I had to have red meat, for example. And so use that intuition, and then of course check with your doctor and say, hey, you know what, I felt like my body wants to go for this kind of food. Is that right for me? Or you can start using your intuition with how you feel with your friends. If you're in a conversation, start tapping into, I feel like I need to tell you this, and I don't know if you need it or not. And then trust yourself enough to speak out that intuitive wisdom, and then see how that the other person respond. And another thing that we could do, and I know this is going to be a shameless plug, but I have a program, or in later on, I have a membership on teaching people how to connect with your guardian angels. And it's really easy to connect with your guardian angels because they're very talkative, they're very loud, and they send signs all the time. So whether that's through angel numbers or a song or somebody calling you, you will get that kind of response pretty quickly. And it's nice to work with them because you'll get this kind of validation. But yeah, if you are interested to get in touch with your guardian angels, you can start meditating, ask them to come closer to you, and have a pen and paper and start automatic writing, and ask them, what do I need to say? What do I need to do? Or what do I need to know today? And start writing it out. And that will be my way of tapping into my intuition and then practicing it in real life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, well, for me, when I first started connecting, it was through automatic writing. And I just remember that first experience was like, okay, I have no idea what just happened there. That was very strange. Yeah, but I love all those tips that you gave, because like you mentioned also, there's so many people that, think they go, oh, it was just instinctive. I just knew. But, being able to tap into that all the time is such a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been guided to ask you this. What were your family and friends' response to you with your spiritual awakening? Because obviously it's not considered normal, quote unquote, right? And especially if you were someone that was like, I'm going to do the 9 to 5, climb the corporate ladder, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm talking to my guardian angels and people that have passed away.
Well, as you might have expected, they think I was going crazy, right when I had my spiritual awakening, I was diagnosed with severe depression. I was in a graphic design school. I was one of the top students. All the professors loved me. And then I wasn't able to go to school because I wasn't feeling well, right? And so when I started feeling well, I went back to school and I connected with them, and I just felt so out of place. And I knew that that wasn't something that I wanted to do, even though I was good at it, even though I love art. And I decided to, because I had the booth experience and then I got good at it. I decided that I wanted to pursue this, and I was still doing graphic design on the side. I was able to run a small business at that time with graphic design, but then I share that with my friends and my professors, and they're going, yeah, that's really risky, that you were dropping out of college just to do that. And nobody quite believed me. And I was really seen. I mean, you were talking about this about, what is it? That was about 2018, 2019 when I had this experience. So there isn't any, like now we see it on Instagram, everybody's talking about the new moon, the crystals, the guys, blah, blah, blah. And that wasn't the norm. And I had to literally find my community of people. And even that, they were just really small cluster of people here and there. And so even my own parents, doubted me, because their idea of a spiritual person is that they go to the Buddhist temple and become a monk or a spiritual nun. Or they are the aggressive medium person that they go on the trance type of thing. And I was not like that, and I didn't fit into any of that impression at all. So it was hard to explain to them, and I had to sort of, as much as I want to be very spiritual and mindful and conscious and have a very high vibration, I can't. I need to live in the treaty with them, and that was really, really hard. And eventually I found my way to balance that out, and I now feel more of myself, luckily. But there was a lot of people that I had to let go because it was not only did I have to force myself to fit in, well, I can do that, but it was also very detrimental to my health. I was getting sick a lot. I felt very disconnected from the universe. I didn't feel creative. I started getting miserable again. So it's just, as you can imagine, it's probably very unhealthy, even if you're going to do that yourself. I think every empath will know that. And sometimes what happens when we are consciously closing ourselves off from everyone, we just start getting very depressed, and that's not helpful. So yeah, losing a lot of people, and I'm now okay with that. I'm happy to, I think the more I become myself, the more I attract wonderful people and have great relationship with people like yourself. I have great friendships, and the one that's stuck with me for a very long time.
That your husband.
Yeah, we've been married, been together for over 24 years. And
Wow.
have a lot of good friends since high school that are still friends with me. We're still on talking terms, and I don't feel judged by them. In fact, they encourage me and they cheer me on. And so if you're listening to this and you feel like I'm by myself, I don't have anybody to support me, I say, be brave. Again, use your sixth sense and use more of that so that you can attract the people of the same kind, and they are out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is such a beautiful reminder, because very similar in that, not because of the spiritual awakening for me, but more because of completely changing my career path. Some of my friends, and also a bit of a change way of thinking, because being really led by my guides on, agreeing or not agreeing with certain things. And so I have also lost friends, or, distanced myself from friends. And it's hard. It is very
Yeah.
hard. But
Yeah.
I sometimes I've even done the like tuning in to see, am I really meant to distance myself, because it's painful. And
Mm-hmm.
it comes back, it's like, yes. So then you go, okay. But like you say, you find your tribe, and we've developed such a beautiful friendship. The two of us, and with Brienne, and then other people that I've connected with, and you bring in your people, like they just find you, or someone connects you, and you're like, oh my gosh, where have you been all my life?
And you feel like you know these people, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very different, because your childhood friendships, you build from childhood,
Yeah.
but you then meet these people, and it's like, oh, you just get along with them, like it's like this
Yeah.
instant connection. It
There's no
makes no
trying
sense.
hard.
No,
Yeah.
it makes no sense, but it feels so right.
Exactly. It fits. Everything clicks. You don't even need
Yes.
to try hard, and we just get each other. And I'm so thankful for that, really. I have some great people online as well, and then we were able to work together because of how, we just are so in sync. We're on the same wavelength. And, when I wasn't true to myself and I wasn't allowing my intuitive self to come out, I was attracting the wrong people. And in fact, had a harder time getting things done, because I think what the universe was trying to say is, you're faking it, so we're going to show you some fake people. So you learn your lesson. So here's your mirror. I'm like, okay, it's my fault.
Thanks.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah. Sometimes it really is a thanks, but no thanks from the universe. You're like, really,
It's
really?
just
Do
like,
we have to go through that? Wasn't necessary.
it's a painful reminder, but I get more authentic after that. And that's how I do things these days, whether that's podcasts or running a business or selling my offers. I just have to keep reminding myself, okay, is this reflecting my authentic self? If it's starting to feel like it's not, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to try to figure out until it feels super aligned before I put it out there.
Mm. This just popped in, have you ever had a time where your sixth sense or intuition, like, was not was lessened? Like you couldn't really tap in? Were there instances where that happens, and what was
Oh yeah.
happening? What was happening in your life when that was that happened?
When I lost my satellite, you mean?
Yes, yes. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, many times. And I think when I am in those times, I'm actually tapping too much into the ego self, the one that is trying to conform to society's expectations, or trying to prove myself really hard. Really running with the ego, like I need to do this because I'm coming from the fear, I'm coming from a place of lack, I'm coming from wanted to show people I'm capable and I'm super competitive. And that's when I totally lost connection and my satellite has disappeared into the space. And so uh, it's not a fun time. And I've made a lot of mistakes. I've, gone through a very embarrassing time. Um, but it's often a call to go back and ground yourself, go back to recenter yourself. And I often will spend, a day or two just sitting on my own and meditate. Even if it's not meditation, I would just sit down and feel all those feelings. And recently, in fact, last month, and my father reached out, and I haven't spoken to him in 2 years. Have been estranged for the 2 years, so that really kicked up a lot of dust for me, and I started feeling like I was disconnected from the universe. And I took a few weeks to really, reconnect with myself. And when I do that, it's very much like, if you have a fever, you're not feeling well, and you just have to rest. And you got to have your chicken soup and lots of water, vitamin C's. And so I was doing exactly that. I just let myself sit down, rest, cry if I must. And then after a few weeks, you start to feel like, okay, that's coming out from you. And it's almost like you're tapping into that deeper layer that has not been healed yet. And so when that is being shed off from you, you'll start to see with more clarity, and you'll start to feel like yourself again. And that's when your intuitive self comes in and go, okay, you're ready. Let's do this. Just like you're ready for your podcast. I'm ready for a podcast. Let's get on it, right? You will feel that at that point, once you replenish and you feel full, I'm going to go back to work.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. You mentioned before around the health piece. So, since we're talking about, resting and having chicken soup and all that, when you were talking about, when you were just kind of like stuck in that place and it was affecting your health, and also this kind of weaving into this, if you don't allow yourself to rest when you are being guided to rest, kind of what happens? Can you share a bit, because I know you went through a health challenge, like what like how bad can it get,
How
and
bad it
what
was.
yeah, for you? Obviously it's different for everyone, but like, for example, for myself, I know if I'm being guided to rest and I get sick. Like I had like really high fevers for like about a week one time, because I was like,
Oh
no,
my God.
I'm fine, I'm just gonna like keep pushing. So yeah, I know your health challenge was a lot longer than like my 1 week. So can you share a bit about that? Because I think it's very important for people to know how stress, anxiety, toxicity in your life can affect your health.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I think because we're so sensitive, we absorb all these energies, and I think it's much worse when we suppress ourselves from feeling all of those feelings. I have had health issues growing up, even when I was a little girl. But the biggest health scare that I got was actually when I traveled to Australia for the first time. I was in Melbourne. I arrived at 6 a.m. in the morning in Melbourne. By 12 p.m., I was in the hospital and I almost died. And it was the biggest health scare. I had pancreatitis, prior to that, I was already having a gallbladder attack almost every few weeks once, and then it eventually started getting weekly. I didn't know that I've always had the pain. I would ignore it. And so that was just my coping mechanism, and how my mother has always, instilled in me and said, oh, it'll go away. Everything will be fine. It'll go away. So I just kept waiting for it to go away and never thought about like, I need to get help. So it was a lot of, I didn't, looking back, I knew that now gallbladder has a lot to do with anger and resentment, and they turn into gallstones. And back to the story, I had pancreatitis, and one of the gallstones had gone into one of the, what do you call it, the pipe that goes into the pancreas, and it almost killed me. And so I had to be I stayed in the hospital, and they wouldn't release me until I got an okay from my Singapore doctor. And then it was a long story, but eventually I went to Singapore and had an operation to get rid of my gallbladder. I was really shocked to look at my gallbladder being twice the size of a normal gallbladder. I have rocks in there that were as big as golf balls. And I can't believe I was carrying that the whole time. So for it to be this big, it has to be there for decades, right? I mean, I was about 35 at that time when I took it out. So that tells me that resentment and that anger has been collecting its energy until it formed into all these stones. And what's worse is because it has been so severely inflamed, it has caused all my other organs, my digestive systems, to be affected as well. And my cancer marker also came back really high. And that was when I had to be monitored for about a year to see if that cancer marker would come down. And luckily for me, eventually it did. And when I had the operation, I knew that, okay, this has a lot to do with that. The resentment, I need to work on myself. This is a time for me to really step out and be, really resolve this issue that I have with my family. And I was feeling all this anger and I couldn't get rid of it. So I have to work with that feeling and see how I can, if that will improve my health. And eventually it did, but I need to get out of that environment as well. So as much as you may say, oh yeah, I can practice all these positive affirmations, think positive, meditate all day. But if you're in a very toxic environment, you're still absorbing those energy. Just like if you're a plant and you're putting, poison soil for it to grow, and it won't grow. So that was a hard pill to swallow. Your health has a lot to do with the people you hang out with and where you live. And I had to make a really hard decision, and that meant I have to be away from my own family. But the more I do, the more I get healthier. So that's just a testament of what I've gone through all my life, just getting sick and getting sick and getting sick, that it is so normal. Like I just went for my blood work the other day, and she looked at my arm here to draw my blood, and she looked at me. She was like, "Oh, you've been poked too many times. I can see all the scars." And I went, "Yeah, I've been in and out of the hospital for too many times, And this is just one of the incident, but I have many other incidents that were just as close death. And I'm not afraid of death, but what I'm afraid of is regret. And I regret that I wasn't able to be a good mom to my son. And so that was what pulled me out from the hospital. And when I was told that, the doctor said, if you didn't come in any earlier, if you come in later, you would not have this life right now. You wouldn't be here. And so I told God, and I said, give me another chance, and I promise you I will do your work. If you can just get me out this door, I will do your work, whatever you need me to do. And that I'll be your vehicle, I'll be your instrument, and I will do anything you need in order to help your people. And that's why I'm doing this work today.
Wow, Jessie. That's...
Oh, aw. Tears are coming out.
I don't have my tissues. But wow. Whew.
What are you feeling?
Okay. Just feeling the sadness for
Thank you.
everything you had to go through. 'Cause I know from your story and speaking to you before that you've gone through a lot.
Thank you.
So
yeah, it was really hard. Thank you for seeing me. And since 2018, when I step away, I knew it was just really, really, like, you can't, it's so complicated to even explain that you can't be with the people you love. And yet when you are with them, you're dying.
yeah,
that's really hard to explain it. If you read the book, the Badass Asian Women book, if you read that story, you'll understand what that means, why I had to step away. And this is not something that I can fix. It is not available to them they didn't choose to heal. They didn't choose to be aware. They are not willing to look at this as an issue and think that everything was just made up and I made it up. In fact, when I was right after my operation, I got out of the hospital. My mother still thought that I was making it up, that I wasn't really sick. And expected me to just move on with life. Although the operation was kind of just a few keyholes in my stomach, but I was just not feeling like myself. I mean, I had a whole organ took out of me. Right now, I know not to even try to justify that. But, back then I had to justify every single thing. And still that wasn't convincing enough. So it's hard to make that decision, but I needed to do that. If it's not for my son, I think I wouldn't have the strength to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It takes a lot of courage to uproot one and to actually leave the people that you love but also know are not good for you. So yeah,
you're
amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry I made you cry.
Oh no, you don't need to be sorry. Yeah, just like, oh, it's starting. And then once I start, I can't stop, and I don't have my tissue box. I'm like,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. But I think this would be a good time for anyone that has questions from our audience, because I know there's a couple of people actually there's people watching everywhere. There's people watching on LinkedIn, there's people watching on Facebook, and there's people watching in the studio. So in the studio, there is a call in button and you can call in, but we've got lots of love from Brienne here. She's watching on Facebook. She's like, two badass goddesses. What a beautiful story, Jessie.
Thank you.
Then fellow former Too Much Women right here too. And then she's like, love y'all's vulnerability and realness. So thank you, Brienne. Thank you for everyone who's tuning in right now.
Brienne is saying that's kind of fun to think of the angels as loud and talkative. They are. Try to tap into your own angels to see and ask them for a sign. They're happy to oblige. The thing is that if you don't ask, they're not going to do anything. They're just waiting for you to ask.
Yeah. It's amazing how, you always hear the voice, just ask, but I think a lot of people are scared to ask, right? Because it's like, if I ask, am I really going to get an answer? And then it's doubting the answer that you get, right? Because that was me at the beginning. It's like, am I just going crazy? Because
right.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, so we have a question here from Brienne, and she's wants to ask you, Jessie, how do you tap into your guides and mediumship? Have your personal practices changed over the years?
I think it's been consistent, fortunately. How do I tap into them? It's very much like when you set an intention to speak to someone, except that someone is not visible and not physical in front of you. But I set the intention to speak to my angels, and I really, one way to feel them is ask them to come closer, speak louder, and ask them to just surround you. And you will feel the immediate effect. In fact, let's try that right now, and just
Mm.
take a deep breath and stay still for a little. And I'll ask the angels to come and all your guardian angels and your guides to surround you right now. And ask them to hug you and be close to you and share their love with you. And open yourself up to receive. What's the feeling you get?
I feel like warmth, and
Mm-hmm.
I can also see them like around me as well.
Yes. And
Mm.
it's immense, for me, it's immense amount of love. Like this really warm love, unconditional love that you don't get um, with, our earthly plane side. And with them, it's there, it's overwhelming. And so to answer your question, Brianne, this is how I do it. And if I connect with someone who has passed on, I would um, do the same thing and ask, is there anybody who wants to come through and send messages to the person who is now requesting for a message? So if, let's say, 𝐸𝐞𝐬𝐬𝐤𝐸 said, I want to connect with so and so, I would ask for that person's name. Or if she didn't say that, I would just ask, okay, whoever wants to come through. So that's why a lot of the mediums would be like, yeah, I have so and so. And then people will be like, but I don't know that uncle, or I didn't know about that great great aunt. But then that's them coming through, and I don't have any say about that. And what's interesting is that they still carry on the kind of the personality that they had before when they have a body, physical body. And if they are talkative, then it's great. But if they're the quiet kind and very introverted, then it's really hard to get messages from them. But yeah, so that's the way for me to do it. I set intention, I have them come in, and I ask for what are the messages you want me to know so that I can relay to the person who's requesting for that.
And one more question from Brienne. It's like, I love angel hugs. I feel their wings wrapped around the sides of my body, encircling. Do you ever have to turn them off or slow the flow so that you can function in 3D? Or is it now a clear relationship where when you are in mediumship readings versus doing other activities?
Do I have to close what off?
Or is it, so do you have to slow down the flow of messages so that you can function in the 3D? Or is it very clear that, this is when you're doing a reading and this is when I'm doing all the 3D stuff?
I have to slow down when I'm doing the 3D stuff. They're functioning at a high frequency. They speak fast. They don't just speak word by word. It's more like, I'm sure you feel the same way when they send you any messages. It's very much a knowing of knowing what to do. I just know what's the next step. And it's clear to you, like as if you have already read the entire story. It's that kind of feeling. And so that's how fast they communicate. And in fact, if you had a dream with people who has passed on, you'll notice that they don't talk to you with their mouth open. It's like you and that person you're meeting, and then you just know what each other is feeling and what that person wanted to say. So if you notice that you had a dream of, let's say, someone who has passed on, and you see them in your dream and they're not opening their mouth, then that is a clear sign that you have had visitation from them, or you went to visit them. So, and that's how the other side works. It's like the moment you think of it, it happens. That's why they talk about quantum, what do you call, quantum leap and quantum science and all of that. And because that plane, that alternative reality really exists. It's how, when I said set intention and they just show up. It doesn't take them long to show up. And when we talk about our guardian angels, Archangel Michael and our guides, they can be available in multiple places at once. They're not like us where we're treaty and we just sit there. We're available at one place. So their intention, their thoughts are at just quick. And sometimes I have to slow down just because there's just too many things that I have to absorb from them. And there's only so many things you can do on the 3D world. So, but you can also work at their pace, sort of, kind of, by trusting in the process. And that's how you manifest. That's the tricky part.
That's a whole nother conversation.
That's
I'm like looking at the time. I'm like, but I want to talk about that now.
Do I have an hour?
Oh, we need probably another hour, so you need to come back. But this popped into my head quickly, if you can answer this for me, was, okay, so when you do mediumship readings, what if they've kind of like moved on? Do they like,
right,
how does it work? Yeah. So
they move on, they reincarnated, and I don't see them anymore. I don't see my best friend anymore. I don't see my grandmother anymore. I don't see them in my dreams. And I knew that when I start, it's been a long time since I've heard from them. In the past, I would still get my grandmother to come by, and she would share some of her recipes that even my mother had forgotten. And I don't even know how I would remember. And I mean, when I was cooking with her when I was a young girl, she doesn't have a recipe book. She is illiterate, right? They're all about like just, eyeball this and that. So there's no way I would have find out. And there's so many recipes she's got. She's a great cook. Anyways, that's how I recall some of those recipes. But these days, I don't get any of that at all. And I think what happens is when they notice that, oh, you're good to go, and you seem like you've healed, you are independent, then my work with you is done, and I'm ready to take on the next life. So you'll feel it, when they're not available. And I think that's really interesting. People think that, oh, they're always available on the other side. Not really. And they're only coming close to us because we need them more than they actually need us. They're like, I graduated. I'm excited. I'm ready to rock and roll. You guys, you are the one who's suffering, and not me. And we're crying. We're like, I missed you. When am I going to see you? So for them, there's no basis of time, physical world. There's no suffering, and it's us, it's us that's going through all this this 3D world. But yeah, it's interesting. They moved on.
Cool. I just wanted to know that. So that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Oh my gosh, Jessie, I can speak to you all day, and I want to talk about the manifestation. So you need to come back, only if you want to.
Of course, I'm happy to be here.
But before we wrap up, I've got a couple more questions for you. The first one being, what would you love our audience to take home with them from our conversation today?
I would like them to know that if they're empaths, they're highly sensitive people, that there is nothing wrong with you. And in fact, you have a very special gift. So please, please, please use it, because that's a gift from the universe for you to impact other people very positively. Your gift is needed. And so if you're in a place that you feel very miserable and you felt like you've not been seen, you've not been heard, not been acknowledged, you're in a wrong environment. And so you have to make a very tough decision here to move to a place that is more conducive of your growth and who you are. And that is necessary, and it's I hate to say this, but I resent it as well. When I first realized that I have this intuition, I didn't like it. Like, why me? But now I really appreciate it because I've seen how many people's life has changed because of my guidance. I can't take credit for all of it. There are a lot of people who did, wonderful work. But the more I share about my story, the more people are inspired and motivated to change their life as well. So a lot of people are waiting to hear from you. A lot of people are waiting for you to come to their lives. So don't think you're not needed. You are very much needed. Your gift is needed.
Thank you. That's such a beautiful message. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jessie. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much for
Kaki.
being here. I'm just,
Oh,
so blessed and so grateful that we had this beautiful conversation. I know you have something for our audience. Is that right? Yes.
yes. We have the New Moon Abundance Workbook, one of my favorite workbook. A lot of my audience loved it. Every new moon, I try to do a new moon manifestation party. So use that New Moon Abundance Workbook to set intentions because it's a very powerful time. And talk about, like, early on, I talk about setting intention, right? So when you set intention to speak to someone, they exist. You know how when your friends wanted to call you and you have an inkling that someone is thinking about you and I should pick up the phone and call that person too, and then you go, oh, I was thinking about you, and the phone call came, and you know how that goes. So setting intention is very powerful on a new moon. The New Moon Abundance Workbook has all the instructions on how to set yourself up for success. There's place the pages where you can write all your intentions. I also have my Facebook group where you can get some instruction how to do that, how to be more mindful of what you want to put out there. Lots of free resources. So come check me out. Once you start, downloading this New Moon Abundance Workbook, you'll find a lot of free resources in my world. So come do a little shopping.
Awesome. I'll have the links to it in the show notes. And where's the best place to find you if people want to find out more about you? Like, where do you usually hang out?
I like to hang out in Facebook. I have come hang out in my Facebook group because we have a lot of fun prompts on money mindset and intuition, all about spiritual empowerment as well as manifestation. I also am in Instagram, Prosper with Jessie, but I'm mostly on Facebook. So yeah, come check me out.
Awesome. I'll have your details in the show notes as well. Thank you so much,
Yay.
Jessie. I've had such a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I had so much fun.